Let's just be real for a second. The word authority, it kind of makes you clench up a little, right? It usually brings up feelings of being controlled or held back or even oppressed. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? In this explainer, we're going to dig into some source material that flips that entire idea on its head.
So here's the big question. Is authority just some old-fashioned, oppressive idea that we should just, get rid of? I think for a lot of us, our gut reaction is a hard yes. We love our freedom, we love our independence, and anything that looks like it's going to limit that, well, it feels like a threat. But what we're looking at here asks us to just pause and question that gut reaction for a moment.
This really gets to the heart of it all. On the left, you've got what we usually think. Authority means control, oppression, restriction. But the framework we're exploring here offers a totally different view. Instead of control, think protection. Instead of oppression, think order. And instead of restriction, believe it or not, think life. Now that is a massive shift, so let's break down how we even get there.
To even begin to understand this, we have to start by redefining what authority actually is. According to this viewpoint, it's not really about one person lording it over another. It's something much bigger. It's a fundamental principle for how the world is supposed to work.
Okay, here's the foundational definition we're working with. The principle of authority is described as God's method for creating order instead of chaos. And look at the goal. It's not to tie people up in rules, but to protect life and to help communities actually work and thrive. So the key thing to get is that it's a structural principle, not just some personal power trip.
Man, this quote from the source material just perfectly captures this whole perspective shift. The purpose is completely flipped. It's not about pushing people down. It's about creating a space where they can be lifted up, where they can be given life. This is really the lens we need to see everything else through.
All right, so if authority is this big principle of order, where do we actually see it in real life? Well, this framework points to 4 main areas or structures where this principle is designed to play out.
And here they are: the family, the church, the workplace, and the state. Now, what's really important here is that these are seen as separate spheres. Each one has its own job, its own unique purpose. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. It's a specific structure for a specific part of our lives.
But why do we even need structure in the first place? Couldn't we all just be free? Well, this perspective would say that without these structures, you don't actually get freedom. You get chaos. You get a world run by the loudest person in the room or the most powerful. Structure gives us clear responsibilities. It stops that every person for themselves disaster. And here's the paradox. This framework is what actually creates the space for real safety and real freedom. So, building on that, we get to our next big idea. And honestly, this might be the most challenging one of all. The focus is about to shift from the what of authority to the how we're supposed to relate to it. And it all comes down to our attitude, not necessarily our agreement. This chart lays out the difference so clearly. See, agreement is all about saying, I think you're right. It's based on your opinion. But respect, in this context, is totally different. It's about saying, I recognize the position you hold. It's not about whether you like the person or their decision. It's about honoring the structure itself. The idea is that you can disagree with a decision but still respect the role, and that's essential for any community to function. To really make this point hit home, the source material gives us this awesome real-world story. So picture this. A police chief out of the blue issues a new rule. It sounds kind of weird. He says every single officer on the force has to get rid of their normal ties and start wearing Velcro neckties. And you can probably guess how that went over. The officers hated it. They thought it was annoying, it looked unprofessional, and it just seemed totally pointless. It felt like a classic case of a boss making a random, silly rule just to show who's in charge. There was a lot of complaining. But there was a hidden reason. The chief knew something the officers didn't. He knew that in a close-quarters struggle, an attacker could grab a normal tie and use it as a weapon to choke an officer. A Velcro tie, on the other hand, it would just break away. That seemingly pointless command was actually a life-saving act of protection. And that's the whole point of the story, right there. Our personal viewpoint is limited. We just don't always have all the information. Someone in a position of authority might have a vantage point, a bigger picture, that lets them see dangers that we can't see from where we're standing. It's a powerful illustration of why we're asked to trust the structure, even when a command just doesn't make sense to us. Okay, so this, of course, leads us to the elephant in the room. The biggest, toughest question of all. What happens when authority isn't just misunderstood? What happens when it's genuinely wrong or even evil? This is where this framework draws a very, very careful line in the sand.
This is the question on everybody's mind, isn't it? So you're telling me I just have to blindly obey no matter what they ask? And the source material is crystal clear on this. Absolutely not. It does not ignore the painful reality of abusive and unjust authority. So here we get a sharp contrast between two completely different things. On one side, you have blind obedience. That's dangerous. That's collaborating with evil. That's giving up your conscience. But on the other side, you have what the source calls biblical submission. And this is the key. It separates the action from the attitude. It means you maintain a respectful attitude toward the position, but you absolutely refuse to do something that is immoral. This is presented as an act of conscience, not a surrender of it.
So what are you supposed to do then? Well, the path laid out is one of appeal, not rebellion. It's about working within the principle of order to fix what's broken. First, you check your own heart. Is your attitude right? Then, you use the proper channels that exist. You appeal. You escalate to a higher authority if you need to. But all the way through, the goal is to keep a spirit of respect, not defiance. This is presented as the way to fight injustice without just creating more chaos.
All right, let's pull all these threads together. There's one final, really powerful metaphor that this viewpoint uses to summarize this whole way of thinking. It's what makes this whole concept click into place.
And the metaphor is just this. Authority is a protective umbrella. That's it. It's not a cage, it's not a weight, it's a covering. And it's designed for your safety and for your good.
And this slide just illustrates that perfectly. When you're living inside these God-designed structures, in your family, church, work, society, you are under that umbrella. And under it, you find safety, freedom, clarity, protection. But when you decide to step out from under it, to reject that principle of order, you're willingly exposing yourself to danger, to chaos, to being isolated and vulnerable. So the choice isn't really between authority and freedom, it's between protection and exposure.
So we'll leave you with this last question to think about. When you look at your own life, your relationships, your job, your community, what's the state of your umbrella? Are you standing under its protection, or have you stepped out on your own into the storm? It's a really profound thought to end on, one that might just change how you see one of the biggest challenges in all of our lives.